Imagine you are a Roman senator in the 1st century AD. You are standing in the Forum, the center of the civilized world. You look around and you see something that makes your blood boil. It's not a barbarian army. It's not a political rival. It is a woman walking down the street. She's wearing a dress. But it's not the heavy, respectable wool that Roman matrons have worn for centuries. It is something else. It shimmers in the sunlight. It moves like water. And, most scandalously of all, you can see right through it. To you, this isn't just a fashion statement. It is the end of the world. The philosopher Seneca the Younger, one of the smartest men in Rome, is standing right there with you. And he is furious. He writes that these dresses are so thin that they offer no protection to the body and, more importantly, no protection to modesty. He complains that when a woman wears this fabric, her husband has no more acquaintance with her body than any stranger on the street. But here is the twist. The Romans weren't just worried about morality. They weren't just clutching their pearls because of a little skin. They were terrified because this piece of fabric was doing something no army had ever managed to do. It was draining the Roman Empire of its gold. This is the story of the silk scandal. The story of how a luxury product from the other side of the world sparked the first great trade war, caused a moral panic, and became a drug that Rome just couldn't quit. To understand why this was such a big deal, we have to talk about what Roman fashion looked like before the Silk Road opened up. In a word, itchy. For hundreds of years, if you were a Roman, rich or poor, you wore wool. Maybe linen if it was hot. It was practical, it was durable. It was boring. But then, in the 1st century BCE, something changed. The empire expanded, trade routes stabilized, and suddenly, mysterious caravans began arriving from the east. They came from a place the Romans called Ceres, the land of silk, which we know today as China. These merchants brought a fabric that defied explanation. It was incredibly light. It was soft. It held dye in a way that wool never could, creating vibrant colors that seemed to glow. It was an instant sensation. By the time of Augustus Caesar, silk was flowing freely into the Greco-Roman world. It became the ultimate status symbol. If you could afford silk, you weren't just rich, you were powerful. You were connected to the exotic, dangerous world beyond the borders. It draped over the body in a way that emphasized wealth, beauty, and status. But there was a catch. The Romans had absolutely no idea how it was made. For centuries, the production of silk was a closely guarded secret of the Chinese dynasties. The Romans had wild theories. Some thought it grew on trees, like a kind of woolly fleece that you combed off the leaves. They didn't know about the silkworms. They didn't know about the mulberry leaves. All they knew was that they wanted it, and they were willing to pay anything to get it. And anything is exactly what they paid. Because silk had to travel thousands of miles, changing hands from the Chinese to the Sogdians to the Persians, and finally to the Romans, the price was astronomical. As silk flooded the streets of Rome, the old guard began to panic. This panic wasn't just about grumpy old men hating new trends. It was about the very identity of Rome. Rome was built on the idea of virtues: strength, discipline, simplicity. Silk was the opposite. It was soft. It was foreign. It was expensive. The Senate decided they had to act. They couldn't let Rome dissolve into a puddle of shimmering luxury. So they tried to ban it. Under the reign of Emperor Tiberius, the Roman government passed a series of laws known as sumptuaria leges, or sumptuary laws. These were laws designed specifically to restrict excessive spending on luxury items. They tried to control what people ate at banquets, and more importantly, what they wore. The laws were strict. They explicitly forbade men from wearing silk. The reasoning was that silk was effeminate. A Roman man in silk was considered soft, weak, and unfit for command. But the anger towards women was even more intense. Seneca's complaint about naked women wasn't just a personal opinion. It reflected a widespread fear that silk was corrupting Roman womanhood. They argued that these clothes, if you could even call them that, were eroding the moral fabric of society. However, the real nightmare was economic. We often think of global trade deficits as a modern problem, but Rome faced a massive one. The Roman historians Pliny the Elder and Strabo wrote extensively about this. They estimated that millions of sesterces, Roman currency, were flowing out of the empire every year to pay for these luxuries. Think about it. Rome was sending solid gold and silver coins to their enemies, the Parthians and Persians, just to buy fabric. The Senate looked at the treasury and saw it emptying. They looked at their rivals in the east and saw them getting rich on Roman gold. They genuinely feared that this obsession with silk would bankrupt the entire empire. So, did the bans work? Did the stern speeches of Seneca and the laws of Tiberius stop the silk trade? Absolutely not. In fact, the prohibition just made it more desirable. Silk became the forbidden fruit. The price skyrocketed, and because the Roman-Persian wars often interrupted the trade routes, the scarcity only made people want it more. The addiction to silk became so powerful that it reached the very top of the political ladder. Fast forward to the 3rd century CE. Enter Emperor Elagabalus. If Tiberius was the stern traditionalist, Elagabalus was the rebellious rock star. He didn't care about sumptuary leges. Historians tell us that Elagabalus was the first Roman emperor to wear garments made entirely of silk. Before him, even the rich usually wore blends, silk mixed with linen or cotton to make it sturdier and slightly more modest. But Elagabalus went full luxury. He didn't care about the cost, and he didn't care about the scandal. To the traditionalists, he was a walking disaster, a symbol of Rome losing its way. But the ultimate proof of silk's power came later, during one of the darkest moments in Roman history. In the year 408 CE, the Visigoths, a Germanic tribe, were besieging the city of Rome. The city was starving. The Romans were desperate. They sent envoys to the Visigoth king, Alaric, asking for terms of surrender. They asked what it would cost to make him go away. Alaric didn't just ask for gold. He didn't just ask for silver or peper. He demanded 4,000 silk tunics. Think about that. To a barbarian warlord, silk was as valuable as hard currency. It was a portable store of wealth. Even as Rome was falling, even as the political structure was crumbling, the value of silk remained absolute. The Romans fought a war against silk, and they lost. They tried to legislate it away, they tried to shame people out of wearing it, and they tried to block the trade routes. But the allure of the naked dress was too strong. Rome's gold continued to flow east, funding the empires that would eventually challenge them. The desire for this fabric was so overwhelming that it fundamentally changed the economy of the ancient world. In the end, the West realized they couldn't beat the silk trade, so they had to steal it. Centuries later, under the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, Rome would finally get its revenge, not by banning silk, but by sending spies to smuggle silkworm eggs out of China in hollow bamboo canes. But that is a heist story for another day. For now, just remember, the next time you see a fashion trend that critics call scandalous or too expensive, you are looking at a tradition that goes back 2,000 years. The Romans learned the hard way that you can conquer the world, but you can't conquer the desire to look good. If you enjoyed this look into the fashion police of the ancient world, hit that like button and subscribe. We have got plenty more stories of historical scandals coming your way. Thanks for watching.